G'day guys, what's cracking? It's Ralph here and welcome to a filthy day on Port Phillip Bay. I am on Rosebud Beach and today the challenge is to take a fine art photograph. Yes, because I knew the weather was going to suck, but I still wanted to get out. It was pouring with rain up until about half an hour ago. But the way I define a fine art photograph is something you could hang on the wall. So people would look at it and go, that needs to belong on my wall, and that reduces the number of shots you might otherwise use. And so I realized today there's a pier. This is Rosebud Pier. It was made, I think, in the early 1900s, and they made it so that when ships, you see this ship right out here, these massive ships, well, back in the day, these ships through the shipping channel would run aground. And they needed a way to get people back to safety because it's very shallow. It's only 50 meters at the end of the pier, and the pier is 300 meters long. And so when the ships ran aboard, which happened, I think, in the early 1900s, then people would come out and they'd watch, but other people would walk down the pier and go and help those people out. Which would you be? Would you be the watcher or the helper? Anyway, I don't care. So there's a shipping container. When I migrated from England when I was 11, that's right, I'm from England originally, all our stuff came over in one shipping container, and that's what it would have looked at like coming into Port Phillip Bay. Interesting story for you. And so here's what I've done. I've walked up the beach a little bit. I'm probably 250, 300 meters up the beach from the pier. I've got my 24-70 Sigma lens on my Nikon Z9 body, and I'm going to run you through a couple of the settings and show you the shot and chat about a couple more things. Alright, so here this is the shot framed up. My idea is it's going to be a pano finish, and those clouds, you can see the clouds just above, those clouds will offer some contrasting layers all the way up. I've got it on a 1 minute exposure, which you can do on the Z9. You put it to standard shooting, and then you can increase the exposure time you have, so it's on a single shot and it's expanded to 1 minute. I think you can go all the way up to 15 minutes, which is super handy. I've chosen aperture of 18. This will go up to an f-stop of 22, but I want to see there's these lights on the pier, and I want to see if I can get some sort of spark, some sort of light burst from them to make things interesting. And my lowest ISO on this camera is 64. Now also you need to remember when you're doing this to turn this to manual focus, so because the subject is so far away, you actually need to manually focus it in. And so I do that manual focus, and I also press the plus button, this button, like so. It zooms me in on the pier, and then I can make sure we're nice and tack sharp, nice pin sharp. And I also, and here's the other one you got to remember to do, you got to remember to turn vibration reduction off, because we're on a tripod. This is the Ulanzi Zero Y travel tripod that I've talked about a bit recently, and because of that I can lock it all down, so you make sure it's all locked down so the camera doesn't move at all. You turn vibration reduction off, because as you do that, the gimbal, internal gimbal that stabilizes, is disabled, because you've disabled all the movement here. If you don't do that, the camera tries to stabilize whilst you're still, and it's a mess. So running an exposure for 60 seconds on this enables all this water and the cloud to really smooth out in some bands. And that's what I'm really looking for. I'm looking for a ton of horizontal bands across, with the feature of the pier, which is horizontal, which is really stark and clear and contrasted against the pale grey of it all. Now what you can do, which the finished product I'm envisaging for this is actually a black and white, and so you can go in and you can change your picture settings to black and white, which is really, it's called monochrome, which is really handy, except for a morning like this where you don't need it, because, well, look, it's already black and white. There's a slight greeny tinge to the water, and there's a slight bluey tinge to the sky, which I kind of like. So maybe I'll keep it in full color later on, maybe I won't. But even if you shoot on your monochrome settings, and you shoot in RAW, it will save it to color and RAW, so you can flick back and forward. It makes no difference at all. It's just you can see what you're actually shooting and see, oh, if this shot might work in black and white. And often the shots that work in black and white are the contrasty ones. You have something very dark and very light, and it's a good tip that it's going to work in black and white. Equally, if the colors suck, you know, sometimes you're taking a photo of something and like the colors are just off. Like my color with this background, not so good, but There you go, monochrome. What do you reckon? Is that better? Anyway, it's an example, isn't it? It's an example, folks. A handy little app you can use is called Magic Viewfinder, and you put in the name, like I'm Nikon, so Nikon Magic Viewfinder, and it gives you an app that you can then look at whatever you're looking at, and like this, alter the focal range to work out what lens you can get and what you need before you actually pull it all out of your kit and start loading it up. Now, just for a little bit of context, I was just there before shooting this direction. I've now moved a couple of 100 meters down the beach, and I'm shooting from this direction, which the beach sort of juts out. You see this sort of comes around, it juts out only to here. All these waves are from that container ship that was 15 minutes ago that take about 10 minutes to catch up and come in. And then if we look this way, it's the kind of the most pointing out position that gives me a straight on as much as I can view. But the problem I encountered was that the lights on the pier have turned off, which is a bit of a bummer, so I might have to Photoshop in some from my previous shot, so that's a bit frustrating. And I can only put it on a 10-second shutter with an aperture up at 20 and my ISO at 64 because the light comes up so quickly. So even though it looks moody and like kind of cool, yeah, I'm limited by that. But what I'm going to do from here is I'm actually going to, if I'm going to shrink this down, and you can sort of see if I broaden the horizon, you can see some interest in these clouds just here. So interest in these clouds just here. So I'm going to take another shot now that kind of captures what you're seeing right there. And if it's any good, I'll post it now. If you're shooting on a miserable day like this, like it's just there's no light, the sun, it's really flat, and you're looking for contrasty images rather than deep beautiful colors or the light illuminating things, I would recommend, if you can, underexposing by a stop. And what that does is it brings out the moodiness. So overexposing smooths things out, so we've done that, but now we're going to bring out the moodiness of these clouds, and we do that by underexposing by a stop. So I'm shooting with an aperture of 16. I don't want to take my f-stop much higher than that because it makes the images more fuzzy, and my shutter speed is 1/5 of a second, which is 1 stop below what my light meter recommends. Make sure your metering is to matrix metering because you want to capture the range of exposures in a whole shot that goes from some lights to some darks. And there's a person walking on the pier as I speak, which is perfect. So I'm going to make the most of him. Now obviously with moving targets you've got to increase your shutter speed, and so what I did is I increased my aperture up to all the way to 2.8, which means you have to make sure that the pier is absolutely in focus, but that's good because it means the sky is blurry and the water is blurry, which adds to that motion blur effect, and it means it captures the man. So I shot the man at about 1/160th of a second, which if I were shooting someone from a distance walking is the perfect speed to shoot. And well, here's the image, and as you can see I kind of zoomed in a little bit, so I cut off the pier. I put no context for how long the pier was because I thought that was interesting given the man is just walking and walking and walking. The other thing I'm doing is I'm taking a shot and then I'm zooming in on that shot to make sure that it's still really focused. On making sure it's focused beforehand, and then after the shot I'm making sure it's focused again. And just some helpful tips for you on this dreary morning. So funny story when it comes to fine art photography. I was featured in an article about the top fine art photographers on the Gold Coast. This is what it looks like, and I'm in some amazing company. But here's what's really interesting about the whole thing: the photo that they chose to exhibit my wonderful prowess as a fine art photographer. As you can tell, I don't think I'm a fine art photographer of any sort of skill. The photo that they took was a test photo I did on my phone with a reflex phone lens to see if I could shoot the stars, and it's the one where those 5 stars, sorry, the 5 planets are aligned. It's this shot. Like, it was just a test to see, push the phone as far as it could go. And that's what they chose for fine art. There's no way in a million billion years I would stick that on my wall. Yeah, anyway, so it's bizarre, the things that happen, isn't it? Thought you might enjoy that. Well, it's been a fun morning. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and please like this video. I do like getting out and about, and I do like bringing you with me because I adapt and think a lot on the run. And like, for example, for that, can you see that? Okay, it's so pretty. I'm gonna take a photo of it. Huh? Check out that cloud formation. Oh, so I was in the middle of doing a sign off, and then I saw that, and I had to go and shoot it. Because that's what happens when you come out, isn't it? You see something more and you see something more, and the more you wait in a particular spot, the more you'll see and enjoy it. So be patient, enjoy the moment, wait to see what will happen, and if you're ready with your camera, you can grab some beautiful memories and some beautiful pieces of art and some perhaps some fine art that can go on someone's wall. I really hope that you've enjoyed this. If any of the photos that you saw today that you'd like to purchase, that you think I'd actually love to hang that on my wall, get in contact. We can arrange that wherever you are in the world. We'll work something out. That'd be amazing. Please subscribe. It's been a joy hanging out with you guys as usual. You are tops, and a real encouragement, a lot of fun to do this whole photography journey with. If you'd like to give us a like, that'd be amazing. If you want to join the channel, that'd be epic. And otherwise, I will see ya in the next video. Bye.